So for our communication, leadership, and conflict management class, our group was tasked with developing a curriculum to teach emerging leaders on the peer level. In particular, we chose to focus on balancing one's home and work life. It seems for both hardworking individuals and leaders in particular, one's family and friends can be put on the back burner at times. So we had a couple questions we wanted to ask you personally so you can use them as examples to teach other people. So I had a question and I was asking, how do you maintain a good balance between the different parts of your life and avoid overworking on one thing or neglecting something else?
Yeah, so for me that's changed through the years because I've been at this for probably 35 years. And I'll tell you, early on, I did not do a good job of that. But I've learned since then, and now in this current position, I feel like I'm doing a lot better job. Early on in my career, I worked a lot. I was in construction, and I got at least one familiar with construction in here, and it can really demand a lot of your time. And so early on in my life, I found myself working, 60, 70 hours a week. And so what that means by default is there's not time for a whole lot else, including family. A few years in, though, I made a conscious decision for me that I was going to change careers and I was going to pursue something that allowed me to have a little bit more time with family. And so for me, that was moving from the private sector employment to public sector. That meant going to work for a local municipality as an inspector. The reason I did that is because I knew for the most part you're talking about 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and weekends off generally. And that was important to me. Now, what I did in that decision was sacrifice pay short term, but that was something that I was willing to do. And again, this wasn't immediately, this was several years into my career. Looking back though, I would not have done it any differently. Because that opened the doors for when I started having, children. I have 2 boys. I could be there for them as a dad and be there for my wife as a husband, and serve through church and community. So it was a good move. So my point is, early on, I don't think I did a good job, and I tried to look down the road and see long term what changes can I make now to place myself in a better position to do that. And I believe I did. And again, the public sector has its demands as well. But long term, I think it was a good decision.
Okay. And then if it's not too personal, was there any moment where you really got burned and you're just like, I need to make a change?
Yeah, and I'll be completely transparent with you guys. So I was in a construction company, and we went around from city to city. We had a contract with the fast food supply. And we would go from city to city and basically go in at night and take out their walk-in coolers. They had freezers and coolers. And overnight, we would take out the old, install a new one, get it up and running. And by the time they opened up the next morning, they were good to go. And so we were living basically from hotel to hotel to hotel. That's what we were doing, and working a lot. And I was watching guys at the time. I was maybe a little older than y'all, but not much older than y'all. And I wasn't dating and I wasn't married, but I was watching guys, married men, basically commit adultery. I mean, they were going out at night, picking up girls and taking them to the hotel room. That wasn't the life that I wanted. And so that was the moment when I said, this isn't for me. Right now, it's not an issue because I'm not married. I mean, I still didn't engage in that, but I don't want that life for me. And so that was the time that I said, I'm going to choose a different path.
Thank you, Matthew. Nice. So the next question I'm going to ask you is, do you think you should prioritize your personal well-being before you focus on other tasks and responsibilities?
Yeah, absolutely. So for years, in terms of leadership, I automatically thought, if I was the leader here in this group, well then it's about me leading y'all, right? I mean, that's where my mind went. Leadership is about me leading others, but what I've learned through the years is that if I'm not leading myself well, I can't lead y'all. And so I need to focus on taking care of me, my well-being, and the better I am at taking care of myself, the more I'm able to lead you guys. To me too, there's a lot of components to taking care of yourself. I mean, we think about eating right, which is important. We think about exercise, which is important. We think about mental health, which is important. But for me as well, we're all spiritual beings, right? And there's a spiritual component, and so we need to be focusing, in my opinion, and from my life, we need to be focusing also on the spiritual aspect of our life, and so that's very important to me. So the short answer is yes. I don't believe that you can lead others without leading yourselves, and there's a lot of components to that self-leadership.
All right. And then my question was, do your personal friends and family see this separation between work and personal life? And then if so, how do you show the priority of family over work?
Yeah. That's tough. I would like to say the answer is yes. That it's like, yeah, my family sees that. I will tell you there were times in my previous vocation where I had a lot of night meetings with the city. So we had council meetings and planning and zoning commission meetings. And if you're expected, if your job description says you'll be there, you can't say I'm not going to be there, right? And so there were times when, man, I didn't want to be there. There was a soccer game or something that my son was playing, or one of my boys were playing. But I do think for the most part, they knew, my wife and my boys knew that if I could be there, I would be there. And there's some nights when I've got to be at this planning and zoning commission meeting, the city council meeting. It's so and that created some tension. It is what it is. But so as a general rule, the way that I would prove that it was important is that when I could be there, I was there. But there were times when, especially with the city, with local government, you have obligations, and so you have to do that as part of the job.
Well, I'll take the last question. Have organizations set a family-friendly environment throughout your life, but in reality fail to consider your personal lives in the work environment? If so, how did you handle the situation?
And so what I've seen over the past 30 plus years is a move, and I think it's a positive thing, a move from really not a consideration 35 years ago, and kind of going back to that first employment I was talking to you about, where there's really no regard or importance placed on work-life balance. Well, now I see, and I hope it continues, I'm seeing a trend toward that's important. And employers are realizing that if your employees aren't happy and able to live that life balance, they're not going to be around very long. That's the reality. So early on, I didn't see it, and kind of to your question about what did you do? I picked another career. I picked something that I knew I would be for the most part available in the evenings, and I would be available on the weekends, and so I chose another path. I can say now though, thinking back to my recent employment with the City College Station, and even here, it's very valued here. Now, I'm kind of in the same boat that y'all are. When we're on. When the semester's here, we're on. But we have lots of time between semesters and spring break where we can take off and enjoy family as well. So generally, I'm seeing a trend to where employers are recognizing the importance of that. And I hope that continues. I think it's a good thing.
Do you still think it's on the person themselves to find a group like that?
I do. Yeah. Well, yeah. For the most part, I guess another way to say that is that employers 30 years ago that did not pay attention or value that, today I think they're starting to value that. Does that make sense? I do still think though there's some career paths that lend itself a little better to that lifestyle. Yeah.
It's just up to the person.
Yeah, exactly. And so going back to city employment, there were incentives in terms of the healthcare coverage for not smoking and working out so many days. And even here we have incentives for exercising, whether it's a Fitbit that I don't have one now, but a Fitbit, to kind of count your steps. So they're moving in a good direction, and I think it's a positive thing.
That's good.
And do you have a conclusion?
Conclusion? Yeah, I'd say the conclusion.
Just to put it down.
So we've now concluded our interview. We'll begin with the introduction of the case for balance theory, expanding on the theory with some questions from George Love, Matthew Martinez. One of the skills that comes from case for balance theory is the prioritization skill. Miguel Lozano and Rebecca Macias, myself, expanded on the topic of prioritization with a question for Professor Sims regarding the subject and how he has shown the skill in the past.
Perfect. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.